How to read music. This video is specifically for the viola. Now at the beginning of every line of viola music, you are going to see this sign. This is called an alto clef, also known as a C clef. Now in your book they look much prettier. I'm not very good at drawing them, but the idea is here. Now it's called C clef because this middle area is always going to point to C. So notice that it's pointing to this line, and this middle line is C. So let's think back to our musical alphabet. We have A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So this space right here is going to be the note after C. So we have A, B, C. It's going to be D. And let's do one more. What is this line going to be? What's the letter after D? Would be E. So we know that this middle line is C. Let's figure out what all the other lines are. So we have to skip the space, which would be D, and the note after D is E, and skip this space, which would be F, because A, B, C, D, E, F, which means this line would be G. Let's go backwards. This might be a little tougher. C, the letter before C is in this space, would be B. The letter before B is A, which is that line. And then we have to go backwards. What becomes before A? The letter G, which means before G is F, this bottom line, is F. Now there are many ways to remember these line notes. I personally like to remember that it spells face, G. Some people say things like funny animals create every garden or anything like that that you can come up with. Totally up to you. Now let's take a look at the space notes in between. So we have 4 space notes, and we're going to want to take each note and figure out what goes between it. So between F and A, we have A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Between A and C, it's a pretty easy one, beginning of the alphabet. B. C and E, what note comes after C? A, B, C, D. And between E and G, A, B, C, D, E, F. So your space notes are G, B, D, F. I remember this one with great big dogs fighting. G, B, D, F. Great big dogs fighting. Alright, let's test your knowledge a bit. Let's see, we're going to leave this key over here on the right, and I'm going to quiz you on some notes. So, first off, what is this center note? Think to yourself, is that a line note or a space note? It's a line note because it has a line going directly through it. Now, let's trace this line over. We should be able to either trace it to the clef and tell us what it is, or we could trace it to the letter, and it reminds us it's C, because remember, on the alto clef, this will always point to C. Excellent. Alright, let's see what this is. Is this a line note or a space note? It's a space note because it has 2 lines on either side of it. Now let's trace over. We can take a look here, and it's F. How about all the way down here? Line note or space note? It's a line note, and it's A. You can trace over and see that. How about this note? Now this is a pretty important note on viola. It's one of our open strings. Trace over. It's a space note that is D. And also it's above this line that we know is C. And we know that A, B, C, D would come next. So let's remember. Our lines are face, G, and our spaces are great big dogs fight. I'm going to take that all away, and we're going to see if you can do some note identification without them there. So let's start here. Line note or space note? Space note. And our spaces are great big dogs fight. So we have great big. That would be B. How about this note? It's a line note. We know our lines are face G. And being that this is our top line, we know that that is G. This note. It's a line note. Should be pretty easy because it is our clef name. It's C. What is this note? If you said E, you're correct. What is this note? If you said G, you're correct. Now, violas. You're going to have to do something here that the violins do not. You and cellos both. Let's get this just a little bit neater. You are going to have to read these things called ledger lines, which are lines that appear above the staff, like this. And you'll have notes here. One, gotta make that line longer so you can see it. One that sits on top of this line, and one that sits up here on the second line. These ledger lines make our staff longer so we can add more notes. Now let's take a closer look. We know that this top line is G. The note resting on top of the line then, which is a space note because it doesn't have a line going through it, would be the letter after G, which is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, back to A. Now we need to keep getting higher, but there's no more lines. We can't just put, notes wherever we want. So we add a little line. And this, since there's a line going through it, is a line note. And what comes after A? B. Now we keep that same line, and we perch a note on top of it. That would be our next note, C. And then we need to add another line. So now we have two lines, D. Now, except for that first note, which we'll cross out for a second, these are our A string notes. We started learning A string a little bit in class. So this is what happens when you put your fingers on the A string. So you're going to have to get really used to these lines. So B has one line going through it, C sits on top of a line, and D has two lines, and the top line goes through it. So to review, we have our alto clef, also called the C clef. We know that our lines are face, G, and our spaces are great big dogs fight. We also learned that we have ledger lines we're going to have to use. Ledger lines. I think there's a D. Could be wrong about that. And B has one ledger line going through it. We'll highlight it. C sits on top of a ledger line, and D has two ledger lines, the top one going through it. We learned that our open A is perched on top of the staff, right there.